Producing Music Podcast with Mark Dollar and Cooper Anderson.
But my final wrap up for the New Music Friday playlist is that, I heard tons of guitar samples used this week. They were all whack. They were all trash. Like, some of them were okay. I'll give it to them. But the general idea of just using a guitar in a pop production does not just make your song sound cool. So I have a perfect remedy for that. What's that remedy? Buy my fucking sample pack. Just do it. It will be the best thing you have done in a long time. Why should you buy my sample pack? Well,
number one, because it's not available on Splice. So everybody who has a Splice subscription has no access to it.
Exactly. You have to get it straight from the source, which is myself and Cooper Anderson. A. B. It's played by me, who I am a real guitar player, who loves playing guitar, who loves playing with other people, has spent my entire life being as professional as I can as a guitar player. And through that walk in life, I've found that I've, got to work with some great artists like Lana Del Rey, Charlie XCX, Katy Perry, Whitney Houston, just to name a few. The other reason why you should buy this sample pack is because it was engineered by myself and the legendary Cooper Anderson, who's worked with John Legend, Kanye West, Ghostface Killah, Rick Ross, and so many more. It's just engineered with the dopest shit too. Between me and Cooper, we're gonna have different types of guitars. I mean, from different Strats to different Tellys to Les Pauls, all types of stuff. And the other cool thing about the sample pack is that you get 5 parallel patterns for the one guitar signal. What does that mean? That means you get 5 different sounds for the one part. So we took advantage of that to give you a DI signal, amp signal, and various overdriven and time effects signals. So you get all of that just from the one sample, and then a bunch of samples, tons of them. So buy and check out dollarsamplepack.com. Sign up for the mailing list. Check it out. You'll be thoroughly impressed with the sounds that you have. And I personally think they're very unique. I think if we heard some more samples like from Dollar Sample Pack, I think we would have a cooler, kind of sound in that concept of guitar pop.
This is just volume 1. There's going to be plenty more volumes. That reminds me, the other thing that gives me an idea, we got to do a tutorial on Ableton legato mode, because these samples are perfect for Ableton legato mode. Basically what that is you can take these loops, since it's basically like 5 different sounds of the same loop. I mean, we took forever setting up this whole elaborate system to record these things. So basically one performance went through about 4 or 5 different chains, and those are all recorded in, and that's how we created the loops. So what you can do on Ableton is you can take those 5 loops and put them onto one track, and then you can bounce back and forth between them by hitting buttons, but it'll keep your position. So you could start on a clean one and then hit distorted for a couple notes, and then switch back, and then maybe throw in a chorus for a second, that sort of thing. It could be really cool. I don't really hear, it's kind of like a glitchy, more EDM effect. It would definitely, if you're trying to do a pop record, you'd have to be super tasteful about it and use it very sparsely. But I think it would be kind of cool and unique. So maybe we'll do a demo of that next week or something. But yeah, we're going to
let's
be
do that.
recording. Let us know what kind of sounds you guys want to hear. We were thinking like maybe an acoustic pack. I get a lot of requests for like Spanish and like classical type stuff. We might do one of those.
Yeah.
Maybe some more electric stuff. Who knows?
Yeah. We're definitely gonna be hitting you guys up with some more samples. So don't ever be afraid to let us know what you're thinking, because we here to service our community. We're just a bunch of producers looking to serve our fellow producer.
That's right. And I think that's about it for the regular portion of New Music Friday and our music news. Did we talk about the music news? Not really.
No, we actually
let's talk about that real quick. The main thing going on right now is still the TikTok ban. I mean, I know we talked about it last week, but so India bans TikTok, and that's kind of domino affected, and now they're talking about banning it in the US. I'm not totally opposed to that, because I do think that if you are going to have these apps that they are not very clear about exactly what data they're taking from you. They have it in this long like terms of service agreement that nobody reads when they sign up. And then the thing that happens is they'll collect this data that you supposedly agreed to, but then they'll use it in ways that you weren't like expecting. And I don't know, it's just kind of crazy. Like, and you have like China, basically, in China, there's no private companies. Like the government has a say in literally every business that operates in China. TikTok is a Chinese-based company. So essentially, when you have this app, you're feeding the Chinese government data for free.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. So personally, I guess I would rather send it to Zuckerberg because he's American. He's not the greatest, but at least it's not going into the hands of a foreign entity. You know what I mean? Like, if it gets really bad with Zuckerberg and Instagram and everything, I mean, you could argue that it already is, but if it gets even worse, theoretically the government could step in and regulate them.
Yeah.
But you can't go in, step in and regulate China because they're a foreign entity. The only way you're going to do that is with military, and I sure hope we do not do that. Let's just cut them off, not give them their free data, keep it to the Zook,
Yeah.
Choose your poison, basically, and that's what I'm choosing is the Facebook family.
Yeah, Facebook, Amazon family, right?
Yep.
But
America.
I agree. I mean, first of all, I'm not a big fan of TikTok. I'm gonna tell you why. Number one is the security releases that they go through for the terms of services for the users. In order to use it, you have to, basically sign away a lot of privacy rights. And that information, yes, goes to the Chinese government. What they do with this information, who knows? Maybe they take this information and help aid to rig elections or sway the societal opinion of America.
I mean, the two number one things are like location data and facial recognition. I mean, come on, that's like bad enough right there, You can do so much with those things. I mean, you hear all these studies coming out about the COVID tracking stuff, and it's like nobody in the US signed up for those apps. I know in other countries they've been doing that, like South Korea and whatnot, but those are like all voluntary and stuff. Nobody's doing that here, but they're still coming out with the data. Guess what? You agreed to it in your terms of services with certain companies.
Yeah. I don't know. if you really check out the Facebook terms of services, they're not nearly as good. One, if you really check it out, the Facebook terms of services is that they have, the first thing you need to realize is that it falls to the Facebook companies, which the Facebook companies are literally 10 companies, which are specifically what you said, data research. There's 4 data research companies, 4 terms and condition companies, and some psychological research companies. I forget. It's kind of weird how it's set up. But these are companies that kind of like shovel in and shovel out terms of services for Facebook because they're always having to be renewed. So as they're being renewed, you are the end user, you and I, we don't necessarily know what's included in that rebranding of I was just seeing, I had a little message, but we are not sure what's happening with those terms of services. So what could happen is that, you know, they could turn on our phone and find out any information for third party, you know, companies and stuff like that. Those are things that, you know, we should all be afraid of in general. I hate it when I say, hey, I need a yoga mat, and then literally in 5 minutes I'll go to Facebook and it'll be like, hey, yoga mats for sale. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the way, I mean, honestly, like it's genius the way they figured it out. I'm not knocking that at all. It's just the way that they're using it is a little invasive.
Oh yeah.
Like the way they figured out to, yeah, I mean, you know, maybe you have Siri going. Maybe there's a term of service on Siri that has your voice activation and they're allowed to listen to that. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But you know, there's like a huge industry of people whose job it is to figure out what little snippets of data they can get, how to maximize the profit out of each little piece of data.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, that's the world we live in. It's over capitalist, but with that being said, I mean, again, it comes down to just picking your poison, you know?
No.
You just got to pick how you want your data, to where you want your data to go at this point. You know, do you want it to go to Amazon? Do you want it to go to TikTok? Do you want it to go to Mark Zuckerberg? You know?
Yeah, let's just keep it American. That's my move. Keep it American.
That's one of the reasons why I use Apple as a phone, because I know that Apple as a company cares about security.
Well, the other thing about Apple too is Apple is not driven by ad revenue. Yeah. So they don't have as much of a financial incentive to exploit your data to external advertising companies, as opposed to Facebook and Amazon and all the other ones, Google. Like, they're all ad revenue based. So it's in their best interest to collect as much data about you as you can, figure out what your move is. You know, Facebook advertising is like amazing. Like, you get 100 people on your mailing list, you can go on Facebook and you can find 2 million more that have more similarities than anybody could humanly, like, fathomly find.
But what you have to also realize is that Apple played a big part of that. The integration with Facebook and the iPhone are unparalleled compared to other cell phone providers and things of that nature, while the iPhone being one of the most popular phones to this day. I don't think there's any phone that can rival the popularity of the iPhone. So I just personally think that, along with the integrations of how you use Facebook, has deliberately changed because of the hand that Apple plays in it. I think before, when we were just going into our computer, and that's the whole thing with MySpace, is that, back in the day, MySpace was, for us to go home and sit in front of our computer and do that. Facebook, and again with the integrations with Apple and just how we can use the app, it's almost like hold on, I'm getting a call. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom. He'll call you back.
It won't call you back. We'll call you right back.
Shoot us a comment on Facebook, Mom.
Yeah, shoot us a comment. Sorry, Mom. But getting right back to it. I don't know. I just kind of find that, again, one of the reasons I love using iPhone is particularly because of the security measures. But if you really look into the Apple and their terms of service, you have to take a look at that because, they have to deliberate that they have to protect your security as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I try to minimize the apps on my phone. I mean, I have Instagram on my iPhone, but it's mostly because that's really a phone-based app. It works much better on the phone than it does on the desktop, but I don't like them tracking the location services.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm willing to give up a little bit. I love Google Maps, for instance. Waze and all that, that's amazing. That's totally changed my life in the last 15 years or so. But
yeah, it's been a while since I have driven, but I have kind of been more of an Apple Maps guy.
Yeah, but you take Ubers and stuff. I mean, that's the same thing. That's all based on that same technology. That's just with a payment system added onto it, basically.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that's a
Awesome.
wrap for Producing Music Podcast, episode 11, the Facebook edition. No, actually, the Buzzsprout edition, the Apple Podcast edition. If you want to check out our extended bonus content, it's available exclusively on Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud, where there are no time limits. And until next week, have a good day. You're screwed. 5 essential skill sets for producers. Let's see.
Okay.
You can go ahead and start.
Go ahead and
I'm gonna add the last two. Julie, I'm at work right now.
For it.
Go ahead and go for it.
So the first one is general music theory. All right, so general music theory. I will be honest, there are producers that know how to get past this, but I also think that those particular producers that don't have music theory but are successful producers just also have an ear for how music is supposed to go. Your knowledge of music doesn't necessarily have to go with just how music theory works, but just to know it means that you know how to understand concept and how you can move things around. Music is or theory is like blocks. It's we can use those blocks to build whatever structure that we want. We're allowed to build it whichever way we want. So the amount of theory that's used in a song versus not used is totally up to you. There are times, and I'm a very musically theoretical person, and there are times where I have to turn off the music theory. But just to know that I have the amount of music theory, for instance, rhythmic syncopation. What is your vocalist singing in? Are they singing an eighth note music pattern or a 16-note music pattern?
Rhythm gets so overlooked. It's ridiculous.
100%. It's just to know how things are moving. First of all, to be a good mixing engineer, you have to know how the rhythm works. For one, when you're trying to lock the low end and you got a 4-on-the-floor kick drum with an 8-note bass pattern, you gotta know, for instance, okay, maybe because the kick is 4 on the floor and I got this 8th note bass pattern, maybe I'll shorten up the sustain of the kick drum, or I'll lengthen the sustain of the kick drum to make the low end join in together. Just that's just literally off of knowing that I got a 4 on the floor kick drum and 8th note bass. I don't even know what those two sound like, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be trying to lock my low end that way. But that's just the general sense of music theory. So rhythmic syncopation and theory, note theory, those are some hand-in-hand things. And I get calls just to, figure out auto-tune keys for people. Like, no joke, that actually happens. Like at least once or twice a week. And I get paid for it. So that's kind of cool. So if you like to get paid, this is one of the most simple ways that you can.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Music theory, it's good
that.
to know, but you don't want to like over theorize it. Like when you're producing a pop record, you're not doing a school project. If you're at Berkeley and you have to hand in your homework for music theory, then yeah, you got to do weird chord structures, sub 5, add 9, whatever. That makes sense. But if you're actually producing a record, you got to go with what sounds good. End of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Top five essential skill sets for producers. Number 2 is editing.
Yes. Editing. I mean, first of all, you don't even have to be a music producer. You don't have to be a mixing engineer. You could have a great career as an editing engineer. Like, just that, to know that like a high profile producer could call you to edit drums, edit vocals, edit guitars, things of that nature, and know how to do it properly. Like, for instance, the way that you would edit drums is completely different from how you would edit guitars. And just knowing the difference of like where the transients are and how to edit them appropriately, that's super huge. I can't even begin to say.
Yeah, I got a Billboard number 1.
I know a guy named John Douglas.
So go ahead.
Cooper got a Billboard number 1 in editing records.
Drums while I was on a ski vacation in Utah.
Yes. Which is awesome. He got paid and also got a Grammy while on a ski vacation in Utah. Think about that. No producer can have that much fun. No mixing engineer can have that much fun working on music.
Yeah. Well, fun is a relative term. I mean,
Yeah.
But yeah, editing, I mean, the way I think about it is it's got different levels. Like you're talking about editing like vocals or like drums or guitars, time adjusting. Editing is also like vocal tuning, vocal comping. And then you can think of it more the big picture as like editing arrangements too. And that's part of production as well. That's one of the things that I really like to focus on is following, getting the right arrangement for a record.
Yeah, you are right. Yeah, so that goes into editing as well, which also plays hand in hand with production. I think that's that close edge between editing and production for sure. All right, moving on. Number 3.
Number 3,
general knowledge of microphones and recording equipment. Shoot on it, Cooper.
I mean, you don't have to necessarily be like, up on all the number. I mean, there's a lot of numbers in this stuff, like 1176, KM84, TLM 170, stuff like that. Like, you don't have to know what all those things mean, but you gotta at least know like a little bit about stuff. So if there's an issue, you can at least tell the person whose job it is to fix that in a language that they understand. You need to be able to communicate at a bare minimum, I'm saying.
Yeah.
A lot of producers like myself came up from an engineering background. I mean, I got started recording, I was like a musician playing in bands and bars and stuff when I was in high school. And I got started like making demos for those bands so we could get gigs. And that's how I got into recording and mixing and stuff. So, I come from that engineering background, but a lot of people come into production from the other end, which is like, you know, making beats, or like, you know, you're an artist and you want to like produce your own record and write your own record or whatever, you know, that sort of thing. So the point is you just need to kind of have a general knowledge of the tools that are required to create these productions.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in the same way. You don't have to know like, okay, the difference between a U47 tube and a U47 FET. You just have to know that how the mic works and how the mic is going to work for your production. So yeah, you might have to do a little bit of the research to figure out what is the difference between a U47 FET versus a U47 tube, or what would be the difference between a C12 or a C10 and a Elim 251. Those are all really dope mics, but the fact of the matter is you're not going to know if any one of those mics are going to work for your production.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had a situation a few months ago. We went into a major studio, and we had requested a certain mic, but we were paying the low rate of like $150 an hour or something, and someone else was paying the higher rate for the other room, and they had basically locked out all the good mics. So I was like, I'd worked in this studio before. I'm not going to name who it is, but I was familiar with their mic list. So I just started listing off like their good mics, and they're like, nope, lockout, nope, lockout, nope, lockout. And when we had walked in originally, like I was expecting the one we had requested because the owner specifically said it was going to be available. And then I walk into the booth and I'm like, that's not the right mic. But then after like, you know, racing around and like looking at the list and whatever, I decided to just go with what the engineer had chosen because I wasn't familiar with any of the other options he was telling me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he knew what I had originally requested. So this was like the closest equivalent of the sound I was going for. And so in that situation, I just had, you know, it was unfortunate because we were promised this one thing, but I had to just go with what was available. And then due to my lack of knowledge, I just went with the expert on that point. But I had enough knowledge to come to that decision, like based on experience. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I knew what I didn't know, so I went with the expert.
Yeah,
exactly.
In that situation. Yeah, it's really good to at least be able to have that second opinion. But yeah, you know, having that, you know, just general knowledge of, okay, yeah, I've been in that situation too, and where it's like I expected this kick drum or these overhead mics, and we had some different options. You know, when you walk into some studios, they do that. Like if you're not one of their high-tail clients, they're gonna automatically have this permanent mic lockout list. Like I did this one studio session, and they were like, anything besides the Neumann mics, which were all the like dopest mics from like U87 to U67, classic U67 too, with the original Peluso cap. You know, like yeah, the studios get like that. So you just have to know, definitely when you're going to a studio, it's like to do the microphone. And this is something I used to do. If I was going to a studio and I didn't know their microphone list, I would take a look at their microphone list and, you know, do the research on the mics that I never heard about and see what sounded good. So if like they had everything else but the stuff that I normally use, I would be able to at least know what are the best or what is, you know, the best for what I'm looking for in that specific situation. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in my situation, the story I mentioned before, I had done that. Like I was familiar with like the top 3 or 4 mics. Like I had basically like 3 backup plans after my main plan. And like if I had known that none of those were going to be available, I would have just brought my own mic, because my own mic is better than any of the other ones they had. But
I was just gonna say, like, why didn't you just have your mic on?
I know, like I totally would have, but I thought we were good because the owner said you're good. So and the previous session we had done at that studio, we were using my preferred mic, which at this particular studio was the Tube Vintage U67. It's a classic vocal mic. Sounds really nice. And then my backup plan was the C24, which is like a stereo version of the C12.
Yeah.
Which is really good for female vocals. But anyway, let's keep it moving. Top 5 essential skill sets for producers. Number 4. Knowledge of current pop culture and music trends. This is good because no matter what people are saying, like, people want to have an audience. Artists want to have an audience.
Yeah.
Anyone who tells you otherwise, maybe they don't, but like, I think that's more of an excuse to justify that they don't actually have an audience. I didn't really want that anyway. Yeah, whatever. People like being popular. Like, we're trying to, if you're trying to make money on this stuff, you got to get out with the trends. You got to know what's happening, and you got to find where you fit into that. And it's an experiment, and it's like very competitive, and it's easy to fail. So you can't, on the flip side, you can't like get beat up if your record flops.
Or just to know the trend. It's like, for instance, one of the things that kind of got me back into producing like rock and roll records is that after a while, back from like 2015, there were all these like young kid bands that were trying to make like 90s rock records. And so I'm all about 90s rock records and guitar. I could talk about all the different combinations of guitar that were essential to some of those 90s productions. So that was a springboard for me to kind of, take advantage of some of those bands that were coming out. I managed to record a lot of bands under that kind of same thing, or for metal or things of that nature. But this can be in pop, and I realize the world is so crazy for this in the pop realm, because in pop, you could the trends could be everywhere. It could be, there is a new trend in trap, and where they've gone from just the guitar trap, and where there's a sample, to the 808s, the kick drums, to now they're using guitars, but 8-bar guitar loops that are specifically like arranged for like pop rock and like punk rock songs, but over trap drums, which is a whole different sound. That's a whole different thing than just your typical like, let's put some 808s and like a little synth sample on the, that's a whole different style of trap. So there are sounds for all of this. And as a producer, you have to know that. If an artist comes to you and says, I want to make like a 70s style like record, but with like trap drums, you have to figure out, okay, well, they want 70s style, so what sounds 70s? What can get me close to that idea of, okay, the 70s? You can't just use like a guitar from the 70s, because you're not recording it the same way that they did in the 70s.
Yeah, or even playing it the same way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's already like you're kind of already missing the mark. So you have to figure out what's going to recreate the sound of the 70s. Is it going to be the horns? Is it going to be how the kick drum was produced? We don't know. And every production has a different array of that. So understanding the pop culture and trends. I would like to also add something to this, is knowing your community, because as a producer, once you assimilate yourself to some sort of music community, if there's one around you, then you're gonna have to like stay up with that, and like stay up with some of those artists, and figure out what's their next moves, because if you're trying to produce the next hot record, then the next hot record might be right there in front of you with one of your friends that you see every Wednesday night playing a bar or something like that.
Yeah, and
You
the other
never
thing
know.
too is like, if so and so dropped this record that's blowing up right now, like say there's a new, I don't know, what were we talking about, Kid Cudi and Eminem.
Yeah.
So say you're pitching another record, because Kid Cudi had one like last week or 2 weeks ago too, so he's like definitely kind of starting to put records out again. So say you're pitching a record to Kid Cudi. Are you gonna make a song that sounds exactly like his last record and expect him to take that, even though you already put out a song that sounds like just like that? Or are you gonna look for something that's like different but could work with his vocals? I would, kind of lean towards that. Like,
Yeah.
what are they gonna do next? They're not gonna put out the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. Unless they're going for a specific sound. Like, for instance, if we were writing a song for The Midnight, we know exactly what that's supposed to sound like.
But then again,
Yeah.
like the song they just dropped doesn't sound anything like a Midnight song, except for the vocals, because it's him singing it. But like, you take the vocals away, you could throw, that could be a Kygo record easily.
Yeah.
Like, so that's what we were saying before. He's trying to push the envelope and expand the boundaries a little bit too. Yeah, the same but different. It's the never-ending paradox of the music industry. But yeah, this is kind of bleeding into number 5 too. So top 5 essential skill sets for producers. Number 5 is the ability to create and execute workflows to achieve the goals of the project.
Yes.
So that's kind of a loaded thing. I think, if you look at that sentence, the most important thing is to know what the goals of the project are, because you can't achieve them if you don't know what they are. So you have to like really set that out up front. I know we talked about this a little bit last week on our top 5 as well, but so you have to basically set goals and achieve them. And if you're looking at a producer, they have to know how to achieve them, or at least like know where to go to achieve them. Like back to my previous example, I trusted that engineer to pick a microphone that would achieve our goal of recording this vocal. That's a small portion of it, but you're producing a record that's going to be over multiple days, weeks, months, hopefully not years, but sometimes it is. So you just, that's an essential skill set for sure, is to be able to identify those goals and develop and execute a plan to achieve those goals.
I like to think that, like, for instance, to be a good producer, you have to know that you can't execute all the goals at the same time. Like, for some producers, and this is just coming down to how they produce records, they try to put the entire beat together right on spot, and that's all good, and they try to pull all the parts in. But sometimes for me as a producer, it's just about what I can record or what I feel like is a good starting point. I like starting points. Like, for instance, like, I had a good opportunity to use a really nice preamp this week, over the last few weeks, provided by Cooper, and that kind of hustled me to say, okay, well, I got to record some stuff, but I had to say what. So I decided that I will record all of the scratch vocals, and I will start recording some guitars, and I got some backgrounds and stuff like that. So I feel a lot more, productive, and that I got a lot more done by getting just those chunks of things done. Not like, oh my God, I got this great sounding thing, I need to get everything done as soon as possible. It's like, no, like, that doesn't work itself either. I don't know what that was. It's kind of weird sound.
You got the choppers coming.
Yeah, the chopper. But that doesn't work. So you have to know definitely when you're on paid time in the studio, that's one of the biggest things. You got to know, okay, you got 5 songs in a 10-hour session that you got to do, like, I don't know, a full band or an artist. Like, let's go full band. It's like, first of all, how are you recording that session? How is it going to be able to get 5 songs done as seamless as possible? Is the band that prepared to do the 5 songs?
Yeah, are the songs even written? Are they good enough? Are they have you locked in the arrangements?
Yeah.
Can the singer sing it? Is it in the right key?
Yeah, exactly. Those are things that you have to, at least you have checked off before you even walked into the room. So you shouldn't be even booking the damn session if you haven't figured those things out first. And then again, getting back to the time, it's like, you know, okay, let's say we do have all those things together. It's like, is it going to work in the studio? Is there technical difficulties, which always happens in the studio session, no matter what? You know, there's always layover. There's always something. So it's like, are you going to be able to make that a realistic goal to get 5 songs done? Are you willing to get the songs done by the skin of your teeth? How are you? You know, you got to think about it like that. Do you really need to walk out with 5 songs today? You know, like, do you really need to? So I think it's, you know, those are key things to understand as a producer. Also, you know, as a producer, I think it's worth it to make sure that, you know, okay, let's say you're working with a singer, you know, kind of same idea as like going in for a 10-hour session. It's like, do you need to get all the primary vocal parts in that song? You know, like, I like doing sessions and where it's like, the hell with just working on one song. Like, if you're coming to sing choruses, and I know every single one of your choruses are going to be loud and powerful, let's check all your choruses at the same time. Meaning, all right, we'll go one song, track the chorus, make sure it sounds good. Go to the next song, track the choruses, sound good while your voice is feeling good. That way we could just keep it all together. The consistency for the record is a lot more tangible, as opposed to having to deal with different vocal sounds from the same vocalist, you know, going through a whole mix and all that. It's like having to recreate something. No, it's like, you know, you got good sounds because you efficiently went through that session and made sure, okay, I'm tracking all my choruses. Okay, on the next day, I tracked all the really characteristic verses. On the day after that, I tracked all the bridges. And the day after that, I tracked the ad-libs. That way, that's to me, one of the most efficient ways to go about recording things in general for the 100%.
For sure. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. That's the 5 essential skill sets for producers here on the Producing Music Podcast. Episode 11. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Remember, once again, check out our sample packs, dollarsamplepack.com, freeproducersamples.com. And until next week, we are out of here.
You're screwed.
And you're screwed.